Thank you, Andy. Glad to be here today. Glad to be with you again, Debbie. What we want to do today is, of course, acquaint you with a little bit of who we are and what we do and our background. You can see both of us have a strong background on the banking side, and today have the privilege to present programs just like this about topics that impact you being able to do your job and doing it well the right way. I want to give you a quick overview of how to make the most of this program and what we're going to talk about. We always encourage you to take notes and review for definitions, and what I mean by that is there will be some terms that we'll be talking about today that might be new for you or that will be added to your vocabulary as you learn more and more about what this topic really is talking about in the sense of complaint management. I highly recommend you have the opportunity to have a discussion with those others that have been able to view the program, carry this message to the people that need to have it. And our goal, of course, is that you get clarity about what you need to do in terms of UDAP and the expectations around complaint management for the front line. I see two aspects of this today. Of course, training is always a part of the solution when a new concept, a new reg, new emphasis, a new process occurs for you. And opportunities like today, this webinar is going to provide you with a path that you can follow and a training for your front line that's going to certainly impact their decisions and the way that they comply with what the expectation is. You, of course, will, as you're putting all this together or already have it in place, know that the internal process and the training around that, as well as coaching, is what makes all of this stick for the front line. So learning today and being a part of the program, your part will be to take notes, discuss and review what you learn, and, of course, to apply what we talked to you about today. What we know is that there's a stepped-up emphasis on identifying and managing customers' complaints. Those complaints can come in a variety of ways. And when we talk about the front line, we're talking about the teller window, the new accounts desk, coming in through the call center, or anyone who works in the branch, including the drive-through teller. Our learning objectives for the front line, and all of you in the branch management side of this, is to uncover why we're talking about the UDAP impact of complaint management. So we'll help you learn the changes, we'll help dispel any myths, certainly learn how it affects you, review some suggested processes that Debbie has devised that I think will really complement what you need to get done, and then teaching the front line how to respond to a complaint, a customer who's annoyed, irritated, or legitimately upset about something. That's always been a part of your agenda, something that you want to know that people know how to do, and we're going to help you with that today. Our specific objectives, of course, are, well, what are the rules around this? How do I comply with this? And what are the consequences in the event that someone does file a complaint and we need to respond to it? Debbie's going to take over here and give you some background and history and really explain how we got to today.
Thanks, honey, and welcome, everyone. Today we want to talk a little bit about this whole idea of unfair, deceptive acts, and with the DoddFrank Act, abusive practices, and kind of this journey and set the context for what's the environment that we're in today. And some of you probably remember this entity called the Federal Trade Commission, which has always been the watchdog for businesses and consumers, although now with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they are strictly focused on the consumer issue. And the Federal Trade Commission, if you went into their website just for fun, kind of poking around at what they do and don't do, you'll see right off the bat that they're extremely focused on consumer protection in the areas of identity theft, debt collection, consumer resources, credit scores. And many of you probably order your brochures for identity theft from them that you can put in your lobby that are free. And what you might not know about the Federal Trade Commission, if you want to run back the numbers and turn back the clock, it actually was organized and began in 1914 with the President Woodrow Wilson. So if the Federal Trade Commission was already there and looking at Section 5 in the law about unfair, deceptive acts and practices, then what has happened that this is such a hot spot? I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like I'm back in the OFAC thing, the Office of Foreign Assets and Control. Remember, some version of OFAC has been around since 1812. They used to call it Trading with the Enemies Act and all this kind of thing. But after 9/11, what happened was, okay, now it's a big regulatory issue. So we're kind of in that same feel here where something was already there, already protecting people, but now it's got ramped up for some reason. And so what's the reason? Well, the reason is pretty simple. There was a bill called the DoddFrank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, and you hear it every night in the news to the point that you almost don't hear it. And in the old days, when they passed a regulation like the Expedited Funds Availability Act, you got one reg from it, and it was called Regulation CC. So Congress would pass a law, and we'd get a regulation that kind of mirrored it. Same thing with Truth in Savings, and we got Reg DD, or Truth in Savings for credit unions. And so we see now with the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act that we get one law, but it has like 200 regulatory implications in it, and it cuts across all kinds of things, and it created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And with this came the new A in UDAP. You know, being from New Orleans, we always say UDAP anyway, so I always say UDAP, like I'm a Saints fan talking about football. But it added an A in here, and so it has brought it to the forefront again for consumer issues. And I don't know about you, some days when you're sitting there, and I'm sure all of you get the BOL newsletter, and about every other minute in the BOL newsletter is something about they've been fined millions, and this one's been fined millions on UDAP issues, which is basically where the root of complaint management comes from, this law. So you know, what's brought it to everyone's attention and to the regulatory attention that we got to do a better job protecting consumers. So they added the A on there and brought it to the attention, really, again, to all the regulators. Now, in your compliance handout that you received with your slides, you will see all the different regulatory bodies and their take on the examination process for UDAP. So we did that for you that are listening that are compliance officers. So you'll see the FDIC, and you'll see the NCUA credit union version, and you'll see OCC. So what you have to think about from the compliance point of view is when they come in, the regulators this year, they're expecting not a one-page policy and a one-page procedure. They wanted a more robust program is what the folks are telling me from last year. So, yeah, if you got by last year, if you had a complaint policy that was a paragraph and maybe a couple of procedures. But that isn't going to fly this year. You're going to have a more robust program, and what that means is that you have to dig deep into those risk areas, your legal, your reputational risk, and things like that, of actually having a UDAP fine or a UDAP violation, or however you want to say it in English, which means it's bad. You know, it's bad for your bank's reputation. It's bad financially if you get fined. And your board of directors isn't going to understand, whether you're a credit union or a bank, they're not going to understand, you know, what just happened. And the thing is you can be in compliance with all the regulations and still have a UDAP violation or what's considered a UDAP issue. And we're going to talk about those definitions today, and I want to kind of walk through and set the framework again about what we mean by unfair and deceptive and abusive. Because I don't know about you, but if somebody were going to file a complaint against our financial institution, I'd rather them file it at our shop and not at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.